Set your priorities right, because if you chase two rabbits, you will lose them both. What is this government really chasing? Culprits or a mere illusion? Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation, Monday at 9:30 p.m. right here on TV1. Now, just last week, there were media reports quoting a central bank report that perpetual treasuries had gained a profit of 5.2 billion rupees for the financial year ending March next year, even surpassing many leading banks in Sri Lanka. What is really going on? However, putting all this aside, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka issued a statement today stating that they have requested the law enforcement authorities of Sri Lanka to investigate the whistleblower, the individual who leaked the report in question, rather than launching a thorough investigation into the former governor, the former governor's son-in-law, and perpetual treasuries itself. Where is this government really heading? Where is transparency? Where is good governance? Has the government got its priorities right? Let's introduce our panelists this evening. Let's start off with Mr. Asoka Begunawardana, who is a political analyst. Nice to have you on board, Mr. Begunawardana, after a lapse of a few months. Also joining us this evening is Dr. W. Vijayawardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, has been very vocal on the show with regard to the bond scam as well as good governance and corruption. Also joining us this evening for the first time on the show is Dr. Lalitha Siriguriwan, former General Manager of Railways, also former Secretary of the Transport Ministry. Nice to have you on board as well, Dr. Guriwan. Joining us this evening is also Mr. Rusiripala Thendakon, a senior banker as well as a political analyst. Again, has been very vocal on corruption as well as transparency, good governance of the Palanir regime. Let's start off tonight's show with Dr. W. Vijayawardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank. 5.2 billion rupees, perpetual treasuries right on top. What is your take, Dr. Vijayawardena?
Well, Samir, you are wrong. It's not 5.2 billion. Cumulative, it's 11 billion rupees. So, because these perpetual treasuries commenced business in February 2014, up to the end of the first financial year, they had made a profit of 1 billion. That is as at March 2015. As at March 2016, the cumulative profits had been around 6.2 billion. In April and May alone, they made another big profit of some 4.7 billion. And altogether, the cumulative profits of this particular small primary dealer has been around 11 billion rupees. Now, this is actually puzzling because these primary dealers like perpetual treasuries are known as standalone individual primary dealers, unlike the primary dealer of Bank of Ceylon or People's Bank, where they have the backing of the resources and the assets of the big banks. Therefore, the central bank is always a little stricter on regulating and supervising the standalone primary dealer, because they don't have any liquidity funding line if they run into a kind of an emergency. Because of this reason, they are small players, they are small profit makers, and all the standalone primary dealers have been small players and small profit makers. But despite the fact, the perpetual treasuries has been a super profit maker, and of course we'll have to understand that it's a market where people have to make profits. If somebody makes profits, we'll have to understand again that he makes profit because of his enterprising ability. But in this case, Shamir, what has happened is that the perpetual treasuries had been doing business not on its own money, but on the monies belonging to other people. Now, for example, in the first bond scam in February 2015, it actually relied on the funding line of Bank of Ceylon, because it didn't have money to bid for 15 billion rupees. Therefore, it got the Bank of Ceylon to bid on its behalf up to 13 billion rupees. So, it was, if the bid had been successful, it is the Bank of Ceylon which would have paid the government and got the bonds for the perpetual treasuries. But in the subsequent years, as the report that you are referring to reveals, they had borrowed money from the central bank at 7.5%, and the report says in the first 2 weeks, within 8 days of April, they have borrowed 66 billion from the central bank at 7.5% and lent to the government at 13%. So that is how the big profits have been made.
Dr. Vijayawardena, you say 11 billion rupees.
Yeah.
How credible is this report?
The report is actually, the central bank has issued a statement today in the evening. It has not denied that it was a report that had been prepared in the central bank. What it has actually said is that central bank had not authorized the people who had prepared the report to release it to public domain. So it's a credible report that had been prepared in the central bank, but of course we have to admit that the report has not gone through all the approval steps which the central bank has with respect to that kind of reports, and in my view, even it has not been approved by the deputy director in charge of these operations in the Department for the Supervision of the Non-Bank Financial Institutions. But it's a report prepared by the team that had conducted the on-site examination of the perpetual treasuries. So this is the real groundwork they have done, and they have digged out all the necessary information to come up with their numbers.
Dr. Vijayawardena, you've been attached to the central bank for many, many years. You were the former deputy governor of the central bank as well. Can this report be wrong?
No, I don't think, because in my view, because I have seen these on-site examination reports, this is one of the finest reports that have been prepared in the central bank. I mean, I have to give credit and I have to commend the team that has prepared the report, because they have done it without fear of favor. It is impartial, objective, and also professional.
Thank you very much, Dr. W. Vijayawardena, former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. I now move my attention to Mr. Rusiripala Tennakone, senior banker and political analyst. Mr. Tennakone, a sigh of relief finally. Everything is coming into play. 11 billion rupees profit for perpetual treasuries. Are you happy? Are you sad? What is your feeling right now? What do you think?
So I'm very happy to state that the efforts taken by the whistleblowers, the media, commentators, critics in this country, going through a very difficult time, testing their credibility in the minds of the people. You know, they had to prove what they said was correct. And today, the results that this company has shown, which are claimed to be unusual, exceptional, unbelievable, and compared to the industry, from the industry standards, they are well above and far beyond even the second in line. So it has proven beyond doubt what we have been talking in public, running a very big risk. On the one hand, about the credibility factor, on the other hand, about the various pressures and dangers that the commentators had in establishing their facts. So today, we know for certain, because of this report that is supposed to have been leaked out. Now, I use the word leaked out. Why is it leaked out? Because, in my opinion, I think the person or the team that prepared this report, that did this initial investigation to formulate this report, would have certainly known one thing, that it will not have an official sanction in the end, whatever the findings are. For that reason, they had no choice but to leak it to the public, release it, let the public take care of it, because the action is based on what they have experienced from the day one of this episode, when the 1 billion became 10 billion, when the PDs, the primary dealers who were shocked with an unprecedented activity on the part of the central bank, with the intervention of the governor himself, the governor coming into the scene, giving instructions on the spot, they were shocked. And from that day onwards, if we look back and see what has happened, it was a case of suppression right throughout. And these people who authored this report would have certainly known what is going to happen to their report. Therefore, they did, in the public interest, a great service to the nation by releasing this unofficially, with all whatever the risk that they will have to face to the public, for the public domain to decide.
Mr. Nakon, the first speaker tonight on the show, Dr. W. Vijayawardena, says in one of his articles that a bond disaster is worse than a bomb disaster. What are your thoughts on this before I move on to Mr.
I think Dr. Vijayawardena should be given the due credit for the role that he himself played. You know, in this whole episode, Dr. Vijayawardena has been writing articles, finding a lot of information about this, and also educating the public in this country about this matter. And he is quite right when he says a bond is worse than a bomb. Because what has happened is, look at our economy, look at the budget, look at the budget deficit, and look at the figures that this puny little newly born company has made. That is why he calls it a bomb. It is unbelievable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Risipal Thanakon, senior bank as well as a political analyst. I now move my attention to Mr. Asoka Begunawardena, who is also a political analyst and was a strong supporter of the good governance regime which was appointed on the 8th of January 2015. He is sitting here today. And Mr. Begunawardena, are you really satisfied in the way in which this government has progressed over the last 1.5 years? When you really look at what has transpired over the last few months, last 1.5 years, people are now raising their eyebrows thinking, is this what we wanted? Your time starts now. Is this what you wanted?
Well, we need to understand the nature, the process that happened, that led to forming a new government and having a new president. So within that framework, we knew that this is not going to be a government with a firm plan leading towards something, because the way this was structured, there were different groups, UNP led by the current Prime Minister, and there were other groups, those who were involved in that process. So unlike the other elections or the presidential elections, there was no firm group, a single group leading the process. It's a coalition with different groups involved. So at even that instant, we knew that this is not going to be a firm government starting from day one, implementing a firm program. So it's clearly stated in the manifesto as well. This is a process that may lead to a better Sri Lanka.
Now you have issues. You have issues with regard to a bond scam. You had two speakers who clearly articulated that there is an issue with regard to good governance. The bond controversy is one of the examples for that. In your opinion, do you think that this is what the people expected? Is this what you expected, Mr. Begunawardena?
Well, the process is actually what I'm trying to say. Now, let's take the example. We had similar issues with the former government, which was led by the SLFP, and current government. We are aware that the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, and they are mainly from the UNP. So it's clear that we are not going to have a clean government as soon as the presidential election is over. It's a process. So within that process, what I am convinced is that process is open. So there's a space for us to raise these issues and question it and make certain changes. Even, I mean, if you can recall, last year during the general election, President himself, His Excellency the President himself stated that, well, I advise the Prime Minister to revisit the decisions made by the Governor and take certain changes. So it's an open process. Even the President is openly questioning the processes. So
how do you view,
it's a new culture altogether.
how do you view the decision taken by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka to look into the person, the whistleblower who leaked this report in question? Because in many countries where there are good democracies, there are laws to protect whistleblowers. How do you view this in a good governance structure?
Well, to best of my knowledge, I think it's like a draft report which is leaked right now. So yes, there's an issue. The issue is not to discuss about how that was released, but the content of it. So I mean, as a whole, there should be a process as well which leads to having a firm report. So I'm not sure why this was leaked too early, because I believe that this process may work and give the same better report at a later stage. So I have no idea how this happened, but I think the most important point is not to investigate about that, but to discuss about the findings of it and how reliable that information is, and go to the next step.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asoka Begunawardana, political analyst, joining us this evening on the show. I now move my attention to Dr. Lalitha Sirigunruwan, former General Manager of Railways, also the former Secretary of the Transport Ministry. Dr. Gunruwan, before talking about good governance and transparency, I want to revisit your tenure as the General Manager of Railways as well as the Secretary to the Ministry of Transport. Some may look at you and think that you were not successful, and some may think that you did not fulfill your task. What really happened?
Well, I don't know how to answer to that. In fact, some time ago, an investigative officer also asked me the same question, whether I was unsuccessful in remaining in the seat.
And what was your response?
Well, I would prefer to quit than being successful in that kind of a seat, because if I became successful in the seat, probably I would have been seated in front of that gentleman as an accused rather than a witness.
Now you talk about your tenure as GM, and you say that there were issues with the previous regime, and that is why you quit. What do you see right now?
Well, I'm really saddened as to what is happening now, because we just heard what was going on in the central bank issue. It's not only limited to that kind of a thing. What we expected from the current government after the change, the people expected the transparency and good governance in particularly in public spending, public investment, government procurements, and transparency, right product obtained at the most economic price for the people. But unfortunately, what we see is the same old mechanism being continued. Now that is what the professionals in this country wrote to the President somewhere in January in 2016 in a kind of a comprehensive write-up, and appealing to the President to intervene and to come out and put in place the transparent mechanisms of public procurement. We, about 14 of us, including academics and some professionals, went and met him also. And to our understanding, he agreed with the statements we had made in that report. But unfortunately, nothing happened after that. That's what we are worried as professionals. And we wanted to see that what was written in this Maitri Palana in January 2015 is put in place, particularly in terms of the spending of public money diligently and productively. And unfortunately, that's not happening.
Dr. Gunruwan, you said that some old mechanisms are continuing. Who is responsible?
Well, rather than trying to figure out who is responsible, let's see why it is happening. Because there is no system in place. What we wanted and what was pledged also in January 2015 was a National Procurement Commission and strictly following the competitive tender procedure in public procurement. But unfortunately, that is not happening. So I think it's up to all the whistleblowers and the professionals in this country to tell the government, look, this is not what we expected from you. You need to be transparent in procurement because it is our money, it's not your money.
Dr. Agunwan, you said that the public has lost out on many instances as far as procurement was concerned, tender procedure was concerned. Can you name us a few?
Well, in the past there were many, and
Let's take a look at post-2015 8 January elections.
In the newspapers there were many things going on. Now, a few to come to my mind is one is the 65,000 houses that they were trying to build in the north, and they were talking about one company, and then I don't know 2.1 million per house, a small house, and who determined the price, and on what competitive procedure they determined the price, and who gave the specifications, and whether the house, the unit that they were offering is habitable, and who did the feasibility study. The country should know these things because it is our money, and finally the country is going to get indebted, and the 65,000 houses will be given to one company, and then isn't it the same old procedure being followed?
Thank you very much, Dr. Lalsir Agunwan, former General Manager of Railways as well as the former Secretary of the Ministry of Transport. Let me introduce our journalists this evening. On to my right is Nadine Majid, on to my immediate left is Chaturang Haporache, and on to my far left is our investigative business journalist as well as host of Newsline. Weekdays at 7 a.m. Is Faraz Shahutari. Nice to have you on board as well, Faraz.
Thank you, Shamir. It's good being here.
Nice to have you on board. Faraz, let's start off with you today.
Well, I think I'll have this from Mr. Risripala. Mr. Risripala, are you worried about the direction our country is heading in terms of good governance?
My answer is yes. I am, like many others who are vigilantly watching what is happening.
Can you put a fine point on it? Why are we disappointed? Why are the people disappointed?
You know, this is a country that has gone through a stage which was criticized openly by the public, and after 2 elections with many promises, the voters, the general public expected some method to the madness. But we are still grappling in the dark, you know, continuing with the same type of affairs that prevailed in this country. We have not been able to set or put right in a single field, at least in one field, proper order that we should bring about in that field.
Well, what are they trying to hide? If they have nothing to hide, why can't they have a proper forensic analysis of, for example, the bond scenario? Why the need for a 3-member committee which took a month to appoint anyway, and then that same committee wants an inquiry on perpetual treasuries which is not forthcoming, and now in frustration perhaps we have a leaked report, and now they're trying to find out who leaked the report. So what are they hiding? Is it the 11 billion?
No, if you look at it, very carefully from the beginning, when people protested, those protesters were found fault with. When the opposition questioned this in Parliament, the opposition was found fault with. They were ridiculed. When a committee was appointed, when they found fault with the committee, it was not the faults that were addressed, but it was the people, what was addressed was the people who raised that. So from the beginning, we can see that there has been a concerted effort on the part of the authorities to suppress the information rather than bringing out the truth.
Dr. Wijayawardena, you've been at the central bank for 3.5 decades. You mentioned earlier that you've seen reports like this in the past as well. Have you ever seen a report of dealing with an issue of this magnitude, of this gravity?
No. I mean, Nadeem, the reason is that this particular report has been prepared, I think, by the team in response to the growing public criticisms against the bond scam that has taken place in the central bank. But the people who have prepared the report, they have visited the perpetual treasuries. They have compared the data which perpetual treasuries had submitted to central bank with the books of accounts which they maintain, asked questions from the employees, directors and so forth, and finally they had come up with the report, and they have prepared the report for submission to their own superiors in the bank. But the procedure in the central bank is that once the report is submitted, it has to go through several stages of approval, and those stages have not been completed when the whistleblower had leaked it to the public domain.
Yeah, we understand that. But my question to you, Dr. Wijayawardena, is, in your 35 years...
No, this is the first time.
First time you've seen a report of this
First time a report that had been done on... Because on-site examinations, Nadeem, are routine matters. Every 2-year period, the central bank goes to a financial institution, it prepares the report and it files the report with the monetary board. But the particular report that had been prepared by this group is an extraordinary report because of the critical nature of the issue before the central bank at this point of time, and it had been done, I think, in order to clear the things.
If you were currently in the central bank, you were former deputy governor of the central bank. If you were at the central bank now, you're seated in that chair, either as deputy governor in the senior leadership of the central bank, and a team comes and submits a report of this nature to you, what would be the first thing that you would do?
Well, if had I been in that particular position, Nadeem, what would I have done is I'd have got all these steps, completed simultaneously so that we can fast track the preparation of the report.
The steps have been completed, the approvals have been given, you now have the final report.
And then, once, because the findings in the report, Nadeem, are all if you look at them, they are shocking. Shocking in the sense the type of transaction they have done, how they have abused the borrowing power from the central bank, how they have robbed the money belonging to the members of the Employees Provident Fund and so forth. All these details are documented in the report. So most probably, I think what the central bank can do at this particular point of time is to report the activities to a law enforcement agency which has powers to examine and record statements from the people and take the people who had committed this particular crime before the courts of law.
Dr. Wijayawardena, this is not something new. This happened 1.5 years ago, just few weeks after this new government came into power.
New government, yeah.
Or few weeks after this, just about a month after this government came into power.
Yeah.
And it's been so long, you've had people talking about it. The COPE report of the previous parliament was suppressed, it never came out. The current COPE committee, God only knows what's happening to their report. Now you have the central bank's report. What more does the government need? What more proof do they need?
Nothing. I mean, for anyone to take action, Nadeem, it's a matter of just calling the central bank report and examine it. And if they find that the supervision team has prepared a genuine report, take action. Nothing
Mr.
else.
Abegunathan, I'll ask this question. You were a supporter of this government coming into power. I remember your book, Yuga Periliya, The Turn of an Era. Having gone through all that, having worked towards bringing this current regime into power, can you be happy with this kind of lackadaisic approach to law enforcement? I mean, the evidence is staring you in the face and you still won't take action.
Well, I am not happy, but I am not that disappointed because the process is continuing. Because unlike the previous era, now things are visible. We can proceed further. That happened because even at the crucial stage of renewing extending the governor's appointment, that had a very difficult period. The president was firm and very determined to open this process.
But if the government had acted after the first instance, then they could have prevented what then, according to civil activists and experts on this matter, happened again in March of this year.
Well, the issue is the new faces, but the same old story that's happening. So what I'm keen is to establish a new mechanism in place so that these things will not happen in the future. So within weeks, yes, true, it's not going to happen. It's replaced by new faces. That's all. The same old story is happening irrespective of which party they are belonging to. What we need is a new culture, new setup, new mechanism in place so that we can get rid of this old
This is exactly
culture.
what the people voted for, Mr.
Yeah,
Abhi.
the point is,
they said
how
we
they are
want a
going to do
new
it.
political culture, we want new mechanisms. It was promised in the Maitri Parliament document. We are going to amend the standing orders of Parliament. We are going to give the committees more oversight powers. This kind of corruption is not going to happen. But the way I see it now, it's Yaha Palane Kaise Vetat. There is no Mudal Palane is also gone.
Now there were developments. Now we have established certain independent commissions. How these commissions are performing, it's another issue. It's not only up to the politicians, the parliament to take decisions. They have taken certain decisions, but now the role of the independent commissions are very important. And also we were trying to further improve this process. We had certain interactions which were not that effective, but there are certain mechanisms in place. But how strong they are performing, how the independent commissions are performing, we have to discuss and see where there are weaknesses. We have to remove those things. Then only we can have a further strength in this.
Thank you, Mr. Asoka. Mr. Rusripala, can I ask you this? Can we cut this whole process short? Can we get to the point? Isn't it, I put it to you, that there is one person who's responsible for this entire fiasco, and that is the Prime Minister. Because it is he who came to Parliament, and it is he who said, I take responsibility, because he said, I changed the system of the bonds. Now, isn't it true that it is his responsibility? All these losses we are talking about today, and the opportunities given to perpetual treasuries, isn't it all the fault of him?
Let me rephrase that question a little bit for us. Can we hold the Prime Minister accountable for the bond scam?
You see, Prime Minister today is in charge of the entire financial sector of this country. And he is the minister in charge of the central bank. So therefore, if somebody has to be held accountable and responsible, it is the Prime Minister. It is the Prime Minister.
Dr. Guruduwan, a quick question to you. Now, we were listening to what was being discussed here in this arena. Now, do you think, Dr. Guruduwan, there is wastage carried out by the current government? There is wastage in the government?
When you spend more for something which you could procure at much lesser price, I'm talking about the same product, same quality, same performance. If you pay more than the price competitively that you can procure, there is wastage. Now, if you have that wastage, that amounts to leakage from the economy, and that deprives the economy of the value added. So that is precisely why we need strong procurement procedure, particularly public procurement, because private sector, they would want to guarantee automatically their productivity, because that's their bottom line. Without profitability, they cannot survive. Whereas here, the decisions are made not on the decision maker's money. The money is public money. The decision makers are someone else. So we need to have a strong procurement procedure. And that procurement procedure has to guarantee the transparent, efficient public spending, particularly on mega projects. And that's exactly what this document proposed. And this document proposed that they would prevent. One of the main statements here is that, this is in Sinhala, so I would simply say that this document says that these kind of large-scale public procurement businesses would be put into transparent bidding process, which we don't see happening even now. For example, in the transport sector, we were told that even the present government is giving into Kurunagala and Dambulla railway line for feasibility study without any competitive bidding process, and they are going to construct Maho to Vaunia railway line again with single loan agreement with one country. Why? I mean, we could open these things up to competition, and then we decide what is best technology, price, and the mechanism for the country.
Mr. Guruduwan, now you have been the Secretary of a Ministry for a long period of time. You were in the government sector for a long time. Now there are instances where companies, international companies, are being brought into the country to do various financial or planning activities in the country. Do you think that these companies are capable of something more than what the government sector cannot do, government sector officials cannot do? Do you think that they have some superhuman strength or some a bit more of an ability than what we can do here, or is this once again a waste?
Depending on the area. Now there may be cases where we don't have expertise. If the country does not have expertise in certain areas, for example, if you're talking about rocket science, we don't have. So if you may be talking about aeronautics or whatever, we don't have. But the things where we have the capabilities and expertise, and the things where we can go one step further and develop our technology, do it ourselves is the best.
Mr. Tenakon, now you were talking about, when we were talking in the first round, you were talking about how this information came out and that the people who actually leaked the document was doing a service to the country, and they might have done it because of the suppression they might have. But wasn't the governor of the central bank who had an allegation against him removed? Didn't that solve the issue? Who are they scared of? Who's suppressing them?
Well, there seems to be a remote control in the central bank even today, and that's a fact. We see in certain places where the public expected drastic changes following the exodus or following the exit of the former governor. People expected a lot of things to change, but that did not happen. Which means there is still some kind of control to keep things going on in the same way in the central bank.
The logical question at this time would be to ask who is the person with the control in his hand? Who is the person with this remote control?
Chaturanga, have you heard of a minister resigning from his portfolio, Minister of Transport, because of a railway accident in this world? He was not driving that train, but he resigned. These things we have heard. So you are asking me a question, who is responsible? The minister in charge. There is no change there. The minister in charge is responsible. The best example is the Minister of Transport resigning when there is a train accident. That is what is happening in the world. That's not happening, unfortunately, in this country.
Dr. Vijayawardena, you spoke about perpetual treasuries gaining some money over the last few months, last few years. Now, you said that the interest rate stood at 7.5 million. The borrowing interest rate from the Bank of Ceylon was 7.5%. And they lend it to the government at 13%. So clearly, perpetual treasuries has taken Bank of Ceylon for a ride, the people for a ride, or the government for a ride?
It's not the Bank of Ceylon, Samir, it's the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Because the Central Bank has its two policy rates. One is its own lending rate, and the other rate is called the rate at which it get the money in the economy into Central Bank and sterilize, which is called the repo rate. Now, repo rate was at 6% and the lending rate was, earlier it was at 8%. What Governor Mahendran did in April 2015 was to bring down the lending rate from 8% to 7.5% when the free market interest rates have gone up. So the analysts, economic analysts immediately pointed out that once he has done that, he had actually created an anomaly in the interest rate structure, because central bank is lending at 7.5%. People in the free market are borrowing pretty much above that rate. So it gives incentives for the commercial banks and primary dealers to borrow from the central bank at 7.5% and lend in the market above and make a big profit.
Dr. Jordan, now the profit stands at 11 billion rupees.
Cumulative, yes.
Cumulative. Who is paying this? Is the public who has to pay this 11
it's
billion?
actually part of that profits had been paid by Minister Ravi Karunanayake because he is the Minister of Finance. For example, if I explain it further, Samir, if a bond can be issued for 100 rupees, the par value, these bonds had been issued below the par value at a discount. So in other words, the Finance Minister has borrowed by issuing a liability for the government of Sri Lanka for 100 rupees, he has borrowed about say 75 to 80 rupees. So he is paying interest on 75 to 80 rupees, and at the end of the period he has to repay 100 rupees.
So clearly the Finance Minister is not
So
paying it out of his
initially
pockets.
the first loser is the Minister of Finance. Then there are other losers in the market who had bought these bonds in the secondary market from the perpetual treasuries and also from other institutions to which the perpetual treasuries had sold these bonds.
EPF.
Yeah, I mean
No.
there are certain other, because it's called the supply chain, like a supply chain, Nadeem. There are certain institutions which had bought these bonds. Now, for example, according to the report, the leak report, the perpetual treasuries had bought this bond for 75 to 80 rupees per 100 rupee bond. Then it sells to an intermediary for 85 rupees. That intermediary sells to EPF for 90 rupees. So likewise, ultimately, if the bond prices go down, if the interest rates go up, EPF members have to
How
suffer
much
the
family wealth could be wiped out as a result of this?
loss. Which one?
How much wealth, how much family
Well,
wealth? EPF is people's savings.
Yeah, it's
How
fair
much
say.
of that
I
could be
mean,
wiped
the
out as a
total, in fact, the committee, the examiners had said a proper investigation should be done by the monetary board in order to identify the loss to the EPF. So we can't say it right now, but it's a matter after the investigation.
Thank you very much, Dr. W. Jayawardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, for expressing your thoughts on the second round. For us, you've been closely watching the bond scam since 2015 February. What was your thought when you heard about the 11 billion profits that was made by perpetual treasuries?
My instant thought, Shamir, was that in March 2015, when our network brought this matter to the attention of the public, our contention then and our contention in between and our contention now and our contention in the future is that there was always the risk of a conflict of interest. And today when we see these phenomenal whirlwind windfall profits made by a young pup, really, of over 11 billion rupees at the cost of the people's money, that is the proof that when we said there would be a conflict of interest. Ministers Champika Ranawaka, Rajita Senaratne, they were all right. And so was President Sirisena in the initial cabinet meeting when they were deciding on who the governor should be. The Prime Minister assured those ministers that to leave it to him, there would be no conflict of interest. Can the Prime Minister explain coherently now how on earth one company made 83% of those profits of a very small market? That's what we need to understand, that we raised the conflict of interest issue, and today we see that proof.
Thank you very much, Faraz, for your thoughts as well in the second round. Newsfirst has been closely monitoring the bond scam that took place in 2015. We've been reporting extensively on the matter over the last few months and last 1.5 years. And as a result of that, there was change in the central bank. A new governor was appointed, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy. What is he doing right now? What is his role as the governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka? What exactly is he doing to arrest the problem at hand? All this and more after this short commercial break. Stay connected. Stay with Face the Nation. This is Face the Nation. We start off the third round with Mr. Asoka Begunawardena, political analyst. Mr. Begunawardena, you said something very interesting. You said the same old thing is happening again. What is the alternative? Do we have an alternative? The time starts now.
Well, that's the exact point. Now we need to have a new culture, new mechanism in place. So towards that, have we achieved anything in the recent past? That's the issue. So to best of my knowledge, this game is still open. It's not yet over. So things will happen in the future as well. Well, it's not happening at a rate at which we are hoping to, but still things are happening. So this is a complex situation. I mean, from the president's point of view, he has no firm footing in neither of these two major parties. So his role is a facilitation role. So he's allowing the other players to continue with the game, but he will set the rules of the game. So that's how I see at this point of time. Now this is what was missing right throughout the history. That we have witnessed in the past that when things of this nature happened, this sort of open process was not there. So what I look forward is to take this as an opportunity and to establish mechanisms so that we can avoid these things happening in the future while investigating this particular incident that has happened and a few other things that are already happening.
Mr. Begunawardena, you said that the president is setting the rules. Is he taking a proactive approach, or is he taking a reactive approach, a wait-and-see policy, and then impose the rules, and then it's way too late, isn't it?
Well, the nature of how the president is handling this setup, if you can observe in all these spheres, not only with the government, even with his own party, he is facilitating a process, expecting a progress towards for the betterment of the country.
No, will it be too late?
No, it's not too late, because that's how the things are happening. And I mean, what at the end of the day, if we can establish these mechanisms within this period, meaning that the first period of his presidency, the president, then for the next era we will be having a setup which will not lead to incidences like this. So,
Mr. Begunawardena, in a few months, probably the same company, Perpetual Treasuries, or another company may gain another 5 billion to 11 billion profits, because the process is slow. The process is a wait-and-see policy. Would that happen?
well, yeah, that's a possibility, but that depends on how we react to all these things. So it's not only the president and the government, it's also our role. I mean, I am part of the government, but still I believe we have an openness to discuss this in open, in public. The force created by these discussions and media and the professionals will lead the way.
The government that you are a part of, is it doing things right? Is it acting like a governance body? Is it doing its job?
Well, I am not satisfied the performance of it, but I think we have to look forward for a better and aggressive approach.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asoka Begunawardena, political analyst, joining us this evening on the show. I now move my attention to Dr. Lalitha Sirigundawan, a former General Manager of Railways and a former Secretary of the Transport Ministry. Dr. Gundawan, you speak in a very disappointed tone about the current activities of the government. You spoke about the 65,000 houses incident, where some party, some sector made a profit out of this entire transaction. What is happening to Sri Lanka? Where are we really heading? Are we on the right track? What is happening to this resplendent island? The change that everyone envisaged.
Very disappointing. As far as I am concerned, there is nothing happening to the betterment. If we had some problem for which the people of this country voted this government into power in January 2015, will be automatically disappointed when you see what is going on at the moment. maybe that we can say the process is on, but then it may be the responsibility of all of us to react. But there are some powers on which the people gave the responsibility of putting this right. It is their responsibility to do it. Now, I don't think President can evade the responsibility. President himself has to take certain strong steps. Now, we were discussing about what happened in the central bank thing. I'm not here to judge who is right or who is wrong. But when there is a strong suspicion, how can the same person still in the public official teams when we are discussing certain public office? We were treating the officers in the previous regime with a different spoon. When there's a suspicion, you take them out and put them into a dustbin and keep them with their hands tied up and throw aside. But how come that this present government's people, how come that they go and continue? And how come the president just watch this happening? And very rightly pointed out, the delayed action, and if it costs the country, the public, the person who did not take action will be responsible.
Dr. Gundawan, with all credit to the president took a firm stand to appoint an individual with a lot of integrity, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy. He came and had a discussion with the central bank officials this year in July, said that the governor has to go home. He took the right step forward. How do you view the role of the present governor of the central bank in this context? What must he do?
Well, I expect Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy to investigate this thoroughly and what happened in the bond scam. Maybe, I don't know, whether the report which came out is a draft report or a final report, which I don't know. But the responsibility of the present governor is on the one hand to look into and understand what happened exactly, and on the other hand to prevent this repeating. So it is his duty. And if the same thing is repeating, not only the present governor, but also the person who appointed the governor also is responsible. Now this is where the chain of responsibility goes in a good governance system. Now whole problem in this country is this good governance is only apparently is in lip service. Nothing is happening in that area.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lalita Gundawan, former General Manager of Railways. I now move my attention to Mr. Rusiripala Tendakon, senior banker as well as a political analyst. Mr. Tendakon, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy is known to be a man with a lot of integrity. What do you think his role should be? Is his hands tied? Can't he do anything about what's taking place at the central bank? You have individuals still at the central bank who are known to be corrupt, whose image is not on par with those like himself, like the governor of the central bank. What is really going on inside the central bank right now?
I think Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy has a very big and important role to play as the governor of the central bank. You know, his role is not merely an investigative role or go into the past and dig into these matters. That is definitely a responsibility that's falling on him. But there are other things that he has to do. For example, now Dr. Vijayawardena pointed out a little while ago how the former governor messed up the interest rates in this country. I think if I am to elaborate that a little more in detail, now the rates that were prevailing when the former government took office, he pronounced at the monetary board meeting that he wouldn't change those things, that rates. He will allow at least those interest rates to continue for 1 month, to the surprise of everybody. Just before the first bond scam, in a very surprising manner, he changed the interest rates, completely upsetting the entire market and paving the way for the conflict of interest to play the correct role and the desired role. And those are the results that we see. So Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, I think he must be we must appreciate that he at least is trying to maintain the stability of the economy.
Is his hands tied? That's my question to
He
you.
definitely his hands are
By
tied.
whom?
And he does not want to, I think, from what appears to us, he does not want to step into any aggressive mannerism of going into these investigative roles. But I think he will be compelled to go into that with what is happening now in the central bank, because he will come up with a lot of problems by having people who should not be kept in certain places being continued in such places. Very soon he will realize the folly of that continuation. Therefore he will have to start changing them. That is one. Then the question of investigating into these matters arising out of what has been now brought out to the public, and the demand that is coming from the public side, he will have to go into the investigative role, however much his hands are tied. But although his hands appear to be tied because of the links that he has to his ministerial connections, I remember very clearly him stating, making a very good and a bold statement, that he was told by the president when he was appointed, don't be afraid of anything, you do what is right. I mean, if I am not mistaken, he stated this publicly. So very soon, sooner than later, I think Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy has to prove to the country the statements that he has made.
We are in no way trying to tell what the governor should do or what his scope of action should be as the governor of the central bank. However, Mr. Thennakoon, is the role of the governor independent? How independent is it, if that is the case?
It is, and it has been a very independent position in this country. It has been so independent that the governors of the central bank have been able to maneuver and direct the economies of this country at times of disaster. When the central bank was bombed, when the whole building collapsed, when the documents vanished, when the people died in numbers, dozens, they continued the affairs. They kept the economy going in this country. Because they were independent, because they could take decisions, because they could guide the presidents of this country. That is the role. Unfortunately, I don't know whether it is willfully done, that position, which should have been another position like the other, like the Attorney General, like the Auditor General, whose appointment is not depending on a minister or one person or a party. If it was made a position to be determined by a commission, answerable to the constitution of the country, in terms of the constitution of the country, it could have been much better. His freedom would have been much more greater than what it is today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ruchirpal Thennakoon. I now move my attention to Dr. W. Wijewardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank. Dr. Wijewardena, your name also came up in the grapevine when you came to the post of Governor of the Central Bank late this year, when there was a shift in the post of governorship as far as the Central Bank is concerned. There were a few names. One was your name. Then there was one of the deputy governors of the central bank, whose name was also up for discussion. Then there was Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy. Taking into account what is happening right now, are you happy that you were not appointed as the governor of the central bank?
Well, of course, Samir, I had never expected to be the governor of the central bank, and therefore that question doesn't arise. But of course, since you have asked this question about Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, whether he is doing it in the way that he should act, I must say that when he took over the central bank's mantle, the credibility of the central bank had been eroded beyond repair, and as a result his main job was to establish credibility, and he did certain work in order to maintain the credibility. For example, he announced according to the newspaper reports, he had agreed with the Corp that the the central bank would fully cooperate with the Corp in order to conduct the inquiry into the bond affair. Then he agreed to provide all the necessary data and information to the Auditor General. Because earlier there had been a confrontation with the Auditor General. Central Bank had declined to provide the information to the Auditor General, but he had said, okay, I will do that. And also immediately he reversed the interest rate. I mean, the interest rate that was reduced by Governor Mahendran to 7.5%. In the month of his assuming duties, he increased it back to 8%, and therefore that interest rate anomaly was somewhat corrected. Then in public forum, he had been making pronouncements where he would be critical of the government's fiscal policy. So in that sense, I might say Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy is more independent than the previous governor.
Dr. W. Jayawardena, 11 billion rupees. How did perpetual treasuries get this money, get this profit? How did they pull off this miracle, 11 billion?
Yeah, miracle is by doing business on other people's money. I mean, it didn't have, because its capital base was just 500 million rupees. So that money is not sufficient for it to, go into a big portfolio of 12 to 13 billion treasury bills and treasury bonds. So what it did was, as I explained in earlier, in the first bond scam, he relied on the monies belonging to Bank of Ceylon. Subsequently, what he did was, he started borrowing from the central bank at 7.5%, and he started lending to government, because the particular leaked report has in fact documented, after the reduction of the interest rate by the central bank, the government securities rates have already started going up by about 5%.
The company, which was registered in September 2013, they only started operations in February 2014, so it is known as a startup company. Can a company like this make profits?
No, it can. I mean, what it did was, actually it had borrowed money from the central bank at 7.5%, lent to the government around 12 to 12.5%, and it's a big capital gain for it, immediate. I mean, it's just like that.
When you really look at this transaction, Dr. Jayawardena, do you think that there is a political arm behind this? Someone
that,
is trying to
we don't know,
manipulating,
because I mean, without evidence, Shamir, we will not be able to subscribe to that kind of an allegation. But of course, if proper inquiry is made, probably we may be able to dig out whether there has been any political influence over this particular affair.
Why isn't the governor of the central bank, the current governor of the central bank, requesting or demanding for a forensic investigation into what exactly transpired over the last few years?
But actually he has said, it's not a matter for the central bank, but it's a matter for one of the law enforcement agencies, because he had said the government will have to initiate action. I hope that he will make that recommendation to the government after the leak report is submitted to the Monetary Board.
Thank you very much, Dr. W. Jayawardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank. Perpetual Treasuries was registered in September 2013, only started operations in February 2014. By the end of 2016, profit stands at 11 billion. Let's start off with the discussion with our journalist. Let's start off with Chaturanga.
Thank you, Sham. Mr. Rusiripal, a quick question to you now. When this government came into power, there were talks of how the previous regime had committed crime, and they were going to go after those who committed the crime. And up to date, there have been no individual or a particular person who was charged with those crimes. Now, there is an 11 billion rupee profit that this company has made. Allegedly, it's the money of the public. In 5 years, they might be called culprits, they might be the wrongdoers. But what's going to happen to that money? Where will that money be after 5 years?
Like all those allegations, this will also die down, and that will be a forgotten affair. When in our discussion today, I remember somebody saying that, by allowing things to get delayed, you pave the way for other fraudulent activities. Exactly that is what happened in this instance. When the first bond scam was left unattended in the way that it should have been attended to, the second bond scam, 6 months later, another bond scam. bigger than that, larger in amount, and also a new system of operation with complete patronage of the central bank, which would not be possible if not for influence by a top person who was there. That is the borrowing that was permitted to this company. Now this is not a thing where we need any sort of law enforcing authority to come in and play a role. The central bank has enough rules and regulations in its operational manuals to cancel the license of this company in the first instance. You don't need the police, you don't need an FCID, you don't need a directive from the Prime Minister or the Minister in charge. That's not necessary. The central bank has enough means in its own regulations to take stern action against such a wrongdoer. It has not done.
But
it has been prevented.
Is cancelling enough?
No, I mean, at least that step should have been taken. Nothing is enough. You know, they should go to jail. And that money should be taken back.
Is there provision in our rules to get hold of their assets? I mean, this company, connected parties, have bought 10% of NDB. So, you know, that's an investment in a different direction. Eventually, all these monies that they have made will be hidden away very openly in the investment in other investments. So rather like what the DEA do in the US, isn't there any rules in this country?
It's a simple rule, no? It's a fraudulent. If the money is fraudulently earned, unethically earned at a loss to a government institution, what is there more to say? What is the law that is required? That belongs to the state.
But there is a difference between unethical and fraudulent.
But in this case, both.
So there is no rule in the country as such to actually take the assets of that company and hold it with the government until investigation.
That is another step. Initially, the central bank will have to, in its investigative process, determine what exactly has happened. And once that is pronounced, then the other legal action will follow suit automatically.
I think the question is there a law under which those assets can be seized?
I think if I intervene, far as the particular report which has been leaked, it has recommended that the Financial Intelligence Unit of the Central Bank should look into the bank accounts of the perpetual treasuries, bank accounts of the directors of the perpetual treasuries, and it has not recommended, but the bank accounts of the senior officers of the perpetual treasuries, so that if there is any fraud that has taken place, the FIU can take action to recover this money under the money laundering laws, because it's a fraudulent activity and you can take it back.
Can I also intervene in this?
Yes, yes, please.
Now, this report, whether it is authentic or whether it is officially released or not, is immaterial. The facts there aren't sufficient for some authority to initiate presidential commission of inquiry, because we are apparently inquiring certain peanuts and things, and some people are being questioned on Silredi and all. I mean, this is 11 billion. Isn't it warranting presidential inquiry commission? And then maybe all what we discussed here, including taking back, can be recommended in the judicial process.
Mr. Abhay, when you talk about, they're talking about managing the state's finances. Another story that has been in the news this week is about how the government has been hiring foreign consultancy firms. There's something that doesn't add up to me here. You hire a foreign consultant when you need advice on certain things. So one of these firms has been hired to advise the government on how to get greater market access in the United States and etc. Now we have think tanks, various think tanks and institutions in this country. We have the Institute of Policy Studies headed by Dr. Razin Salih, who's such a respected global economist that he's actually now advising the British government on Brexit. Then you have even the Strategic Enterprise Management Agency, which is also, in a manner of speaking, a state-funded consultancy firm. So consider this, right now in this country, hundreds of thousands of people are suffering in drought. Then in some areas, people are digging dried up riverbeds to find muddy water. They're then boiling and drinking mud. The government's allocation for drought-stricken people is just over 18 million rupees. They're spending millions of dollars on foreign consultancy firms. Shamir was saying at the beginning of this program, where are these governments, what has happened to this government's priorities? What are its priorities? And I mean, we're talking about Dr. Razin Saleh. He keeps telling the government what you need to do to get greater market access. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. So if you're not going to listen to the chairman of IPS, is it just that you want to spend millions of dollars and listen to a consultant?
Well, I agree with your point, and what originally Dr. Gunduran mentioned, that there may be certain areas where we need foreign inputs, but certain things are very visible, and we have the talent in our country, so we have to capitalize on that and do it. I have no issue about that. I think it's not properly done right now. We have not done it to the best of the country. I agree with you. No issue about that.
But then, look, you've got SEMA. Take SEMA, for example, the Strategic Enterprise Management Agency. Has the government consulted since coming in, since your tenure began, since the beginning of your term as Chairman and Managing Director of the Strategic Enterprise Management Agency? How many times has the government consulted you on anything to do with strategic enterprise management?
Well, this is a complex situation, because originally the setup was with the Presidential Secretariat. Now we are operating still under the Presidential Secretariat. So our advices were given through the Presidential Secretariat to the state-owned enterprises which were strategically important. Now simultaneously there are new developments from the new government having another ministries to look after these entities, so it's a complex situation. There are line ministries who are supposed to
but Mr. Abhay, who's creating the complex situation? Why are they creating a complex situation when the situation can be made very simple?
Well,
so they're creating a complex, so this is the worry, this is the concern, because when someone creates unnecessary complexities or adds levels of bureaucracy that are not needed, the fear is that someone is doing it so that they can skim a little bit off the top.
Well, we need to understand the complexity of this setup while understanding the complexity in the political setup, because we need to, I mean, in the political arena, the complexity, we need to understand the complexity. That's why now we have the two governments, I mean, two major political parties forming a government, presidents from one party, he got the support of the other party for a particular, at a particular point. So it's a process which is complex. I agree. We had a discussion whether we need to increase number of cabinet ministers. All those issues are there because of the complex nature of the present political setup.
But Mr. Arvind, consider, when the government is willing to dish out millions of dollars on consultancy firms, but can only scrape together 18 million rupees for 400,000 drought-stricken people in this country, does that mean that this complex process is not working?
No, I mean now for the drought, we need to get firm action again. I mean, there's no question about that. We need to take firm steps that the government should anyway do, irrespective of what you are mentioning about the hiring the foreign consultants. So definitely now it's a task of the government to cater to the demands of the those who are suffering for different purposes, different reasons. So definitely the government should take steps on that matter.
Dr. Gunaruwan, quick question to you now on the topic that we are on right now. As Nadeem very rightly said, more than some close to 18 million brought in for the drought-stricken people. But when ministers want duty-free vehicle permits, 40 billion for that. When central provincial councillors want to go abroad to Russia, close to 20 million for that. but the people who are in the country who are suffering, only 18 million. Does this mean that the country is going into a situation where the minority is becoming rich and able, and they continue to be so, and the majority of the people are in dire situation? Is that what's happening in the country?
It appears that is what is called Yahapalane. That's the whole problem.
Doctor, sorry, go ahead.
I will answer to your question also in the same spirit. Now, foreign consultants coming in for what? As I said, if it is something that we don't have the knowledge, you may have to go for foreign countries. If you are repeating, or if you are getting foreign companies to come up and do something which our local consultancy firms can do, like IPS or CECB or other places, then it is a crime, not only a mistake. It's a crime, and it's a violation, sheer violation of the page 57 of Maitri Palane. And
what does it say?
It says, දේශීය කර්මාන්ත නංවාලීමට දායක කරගන්න, දේශීය එකතු කිරීමේ අගය ඉහළ නංවන්න, දේශීය කුසලතා වර්ධනය කරගන්න, විදේශීය ණයබර ඉහළ යාම අවම කරගන්න.
So they've taken off all they've just added Videshia in front of everything.
If you something like in
front of all the Deshia.
So this is what was promised, and what is being delivered is what you see now. There's a second mistake in the whole thing. Assuming that the foreign companies are needed, assuming that in this particular area the Sri Lankan companies don't have the expertise. Well, there should be a transparent way of recruiting. Who is determining the qualifications of these companies, and have they competitively bid internationally, and is the price right that we pay for these companies?
What is the alternative, Dr. Gunran? You said that the previous regime was corrupt, and that is why you stepped down as the Secretary of the Ministry of Transport and the GM of Railways, and now you are saying that this government is also corrupt. If that is the case, what is the alternative? Let's look at the solutions, look at the options, let's look at the way forward for Sri Lanka. What is the option?
Two things. As the professional, we should come out and openly protest about this. That's number one, that we have to do, and we have to show that what was being delivered is not what they promised. So that is something that we have to tell very clearly, plainly to the public. And secondly, well, if a change is needed, again, let's change it.
Dr. Wijayawardena, do you see this hiring of foreign consultancy firms, this creating unnecessary levels of bureaucracy? There are rumors of a sustainable development bill in the offing that will create a policy development office, etc. Are these symptoms of crony capitalism?
No, actually, Nadeem, I agree with Dr. Gunaruwan and Mr. Begunawardena that wherever we are deficient in expertise, we'll have to get expertise from any part of the world. It doesn't matter. But of course, when we get the expertise, Nadeem, we'll have to follow a transparent procedure so that we'll be getting the best. But what is happening right now is we simply pick up a certain supplier and we think that he is the best person and we assign the job to him, which doesn't provide the best service to Sri Lankans.
And the price.
So that is where we have gone wrong.
See, this is also another question based on that. We've already hired someone to do that job, and we've given him a position as the chairman of IPS. He is also now advising the British government on Brexit. So now one of these consultancy firms reportedly has been hired to advise the government on how to increase market taxes.
That's why
Are you saying that this gentleman who the British government thought so highly of, that they appointed him to a commission to advise them on Brexit, is not enough of a superstar to advise the Sri Lankan government?
I mean, you are correct, Nadeem. Now, Institute of Policy Studies, in my opinion, it's an institution. Of course, you know, Dr. Gunruwan was on their governing board for many years. They had a collection of best talents in the country. If you want to get advice on the budgetary policy, exchange rate policy, education policy, inclusive growth policy, whatever it may be, they have the best talents, and that particular institution should have been tapped before we had tried to get the assistance from the foreign countries in this particular aspect. So there are certain institutions which have not been utilized by the government when it comes to getting the best advice for their own operations.
Mr. Usripal, a question about the supernormal profits earned by perpetual treasury. Now we looked at it from the point of the central bank, we looked at it from the point of the public. What if we look at it from the point of other primary dealers? Have they lost something because this particular company gained so much?
Yeah, in the first instance, they lost the opportunity of bidding for the 10 billion. If it was announced, they would have bid along with the others on an equal footing. That was the first loss that they made, because they were taken unawares. You call for 1 billion and you award 10 billion. And the central bank goes on giving monies at a very, very concessional rate, make it available to a selected, favored individual company to bid over the others. 49.4 billion was bid by perpetual treasuries on the March 29, 31st bids, treasury bonds, when they were short of 36 billion to pay for it. The others also would have done the same thing, but they were not favored. They were not given that favored service by the central bank. They were not offered that money, that opportunity. So it's a loss to them.
For us, do you want to add something before we wrap up?
Yes, I'd like to ask the final question from Dr. Vijay Warden, really. Do you think that there is a real commitment and a real chance that there will be a logical conclusion to this sad affair, and that at some point some money will perhaps be paid back to the consolidated fund?
Well, I'll have to go by Dr. Gunaruwan. In fact, if the civil society is vigilant, if it exercises adequate volume of pressure on the government, there will be a logical conclusion. I mean, you would have already seen when the government wanted to appoint Governor Mahendran as governor, the civil society was successful in preventing it. So likewise, it's up to the civil society, because in a way what the whistleblower has done by releasing this examination report to public domain is a good thing, because it has strengthened the hands of the civil society now, because it has armed the civil society with now correct facts. Earlier we didn't have the facts, now we have the facts. So as a result, the civil society will have to carry on its campaign, like media, civil society. Already I have seen one of the public interest activists had demanded President Maithripala Sirisena to appoint a commission of inquiry to this. Again, he has appealed to the Minister of Finance to take out the anomaly in taxation, because none of these primary dealers have paid taxes. Out of the 11 billion rupees that he has taken, the before tax profit is 11 billion, after tax profit is only 11 billion. So they have not paid any taxes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your thoughts on the 4 rounds that we witnessed so far on Face the Nation. We're now going for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round. This is Face the Nation. Has the government got its priorities right? All this and more after a short commercial break. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We start off the final round with Dr. Lalita Gunwan, former General Manager of Railways as well as former Secretary of the Transport Ministry. Dr. Gunwan, you said that professionals and civil society has a very big role to play in a context like this. However, are the professionals doing their job? You have institutions like the GMOA, on one side saying that they are supporting several causes, on the other side saying something else, something totally different. Professionals are really not united when it comes to matters like this. It seems that they are politically motivated now.
Well, it may be possible that the professionals may have their own suboptimal things in their own camps.
So you cannot expect justice from them, can you?
But in this agenda, we have a very clear consensus that no one can steal on public money, and no one can make the poor man's public money being taken for ransom by politicians. So we expect as professionals, and I think there is unanimous agreement, that's why different sets of people joined with us and signed this appeal to the President in January 2016. Can the authorities, starting from the President, right down to the individual agencies like maybe SEMA, issue one simple statement, one simple directive: hereafter no more procurement without having transparent tender procedures? Now why cannot that simple thing which was written here be put into practice by a circular? This is not happening. So the problem is that maybe the authorities think that they are wearing a cloth which only the bright people see. And until such time a small podian goes and says that the king is naked, the king doesn't realize this. Now,
but what is the responsibility of politicians? Now you have parties calling themselves the joint opposition, having rallies in Ratnapura, Kurunagala, so on and so forth. Their objective at the end of the day is to make a defeated candidate come back again to the forefront. But that is not the way out for a country like Sri Lanka, Dr. Gundawan. That is clear, isn't it?
Political game will be played by the politicians. The regulatory part, the system has to be put in place. That is the mandate President Maithripala Sirisena had in January, because he came above the political divide and he came with a consensus. So he has the duty, and if ever someone can do that, it's only him who can do that. The sad part is apparently he is not taking that strong initiative to drive this towards that system being put in place.
But one can say that he is not being given that opportunity to do his job.
What do you mean? He is the president of the country, chief executive officer. What else do you want? He should be able to give a presidential directive saying that this is what I want in the country. He cannot have an excuse on that. He cannot say that because there is a government and all. One thing, may I say this? It was only the president who was very clearly put into power, and the government was never put into power very clearly by the people. Not even on the 17th of August. There was a kind of a divide. But President was very clearly elected by the people to deliver this mandate. So it is up to the President. Mr. President, please deliver. That's what we want.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lalsit Gundawan, former General Manager of Railways as well as former Secretary of the Transport Ministry. I now move my attention to Mr. Asoka Abe Gunawardana, political analyst. There you go, you have a task at hand. You were told, why isn't SEMA issuing a statement and saying that everything should be streamlined, a circular to be issued, and there you go, you are the chairman of SEMA. Why are you not doing it? The time starts now.
Well, now I think because of the latest developments, and it's very clear that we should close this episode on this central bank issue. So the President should take the initiative and take precise decisions on that matter, as Dr. Gundawan mentioned. And we were waiting for more than 1 year, 10 months, 9 months to see what changes are happening. Certain things have happened, but it's not adequate, it's not satisfactory. So I think we have limited time left. Though we have another full term left. I mean, from the government point of view, we have only passed 1 year, but still things, if we cannot deliver from the government point of view, then from the President's point of view, then it will be a disaster for the country. So I think the clear signals are very clear now. So it's very important for the President to take certain decisions at this stage. We are part of that Presidential Secretariat. As SEMA, we too are worried about these developments, and we believe that the correct steps, decisions should be taken very soon. So towards that, I think the President, well, he had a mandate to give more powers to the Cabinet and the Parliament, and on the other hand we say that he is the executive president, so he has to do it. So it's a dilemma. So on one hand he should give more powers to for the others to exercise, and on the other hand he has the mandate to be the executive president. So this dilemma, we need to go beyond that and to get something useful. Then definitely the civil society must be much more focused and should be more proactive to make this change. So if that happens, then definitely I am sure that the president will facilitate that process, as that has happened while appointing the new central bank governor. So president is firm. Well, I was discussing with him about this central bank governors issue prior to the decision, sometime a few months before that. He was very firm on that matter. He was expecting the civil society to create that environment for him to facilitate the process. He is not a dictator, he is facilitating. For that we need to have these discussions are very important, and the civil society should be more proactive towards making certain decisions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asugabya Guruvardhan, a political analyst, joining us on the show. I now move my attention to Dr. W. Vijayawardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank. Dr. Vijayawardena, what should be the focus of the government? Has the government got its priorities right? The time starts now.
Well, the focus should be, first of all, the government will have to establish good governance, because government has promised to deliver economic democracy to people at the last election. What we mean by economic democracy is that the people will have to make choices rather than the bureaucrats or politicians. To do that, it has to establish a mechanism where the public monies are utilized in the most prudential manner by the public authorities. So to do that, again, then we'll have to introduce the transparent procurement and tender board systems. Because if we do this kind of things, Shamir, what would happen is that currently the government has acute problem of meeting its own expenses, and it doesn't have money even to pay salaries. But if the monies are being wasted in other ways, the government is unable to maintain its services. So because of this reason, it is necessary that the waste and corruption will have to be stopped. To stop that, it should have the good governance principles in place. Then the other priorities are the development priorities. The development priorities are, the government has already decided that it should introduce necessary expenditure programs to increase the expenditure on education, healthcare services, research and development, converting Sri Lanka into a science and technology base, and all these things are the new priorities of the government, and they have to be done in order to attain the objectives of the government to make Sri Lanka a prosperous nation.
Dr. Vijayawardena, you said that good governance needs to be established, transparency needs to be established. What does that really mean? Do you mean to say that there is no transparency and good governance right now in the country?
You would have heard Dr. Gunaruwan saying, and also Mr. Tv1 saying, nothing is transparent. Nothing is transparent. That is why one of the officers of the central bank had to leak that particular document to public domain.
Thank you very much, Dr. W. Vijayawardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. I now move my attention to Mr. Thennakoon, our final speaker of the day. He is a senior banker as well as a political analyst. Mr. Thennakoon, what is going on? What is wrong in the system of governance in Sri Lanka? The time starts now.
I think this government has taken the cue from the previous government exactly in the way, choosing what they can do under the existing rules and regulations. I have, for example, a document here which is, I just happened to see this, procurement guidelines, which was done by no one other than the former president, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa. Creating a national procurement agency. Now we were talking about engaging foreign experts. Not many people know that this document has paved the way leaving out the tender procedures, the transparency procedures, competitiveness, everything. In such instances, particularly in selecting foreign experts, you don't have to follow those procedures. So what this government does is exactly it follows the rule. And what has it done in the central bank case? When Arjuna Mahendran has done something wrong, the Prime Minister says Cabral did the same thing. My God. This is what the government is doing. So our worry is, this government came into this position because of the choice of one person, that is the President. In the President, people found a person to rely on, a person to depend on, to carry forward this country. Unfortunately, our worry is that President has only about 3.5 years more. And after that he is not going to come. Who is going to come? That is why we are pressurizing the President. Please don't wait. The people are impatient to wait anymore. If we knew that the President is going to come for another term, at least we have some consolation. He is not going to come, according to his own pronouncement. Therefore, if the time is short, and if he is the selected person, if he is the person on whom the people relied on in this country, we have to force him to take action without delay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rushdipal Thanakon, Senior Banker as well as a political analyst. Thank you very much, Dr. Lalsir Gunwan, former General Manager of Railways, former Secretary of the Ministry of Transport, for joining us this evening. Thank you very much, Dr. W.A. Javardhana, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, as well as Mr. Asoka Gunwardhana, political analyst, for joining us on the show tonight. Thank you very much, Nadeem. Thank you very much, Chaturanga. Thank you very much, Faraz, for joining us this evening. Tomorrow, 7 a.m. Who is the guest and what would be the topic of discussion?
Tomorrow, I'm going to ask my producer there, because he's confirmed it.
We have the former chairman of the PESFAC, Mr. Lasil De Silva, coming on the show tomorrow. We hope to discuss corruption and a lot of other matters as well, as Faraz will have
don't tell me you forgot who your guest is tomorrow morning.
Not at all. It's Lasil De Silva tomorrow, and it's Deo Gunasekara the day after, and on the day after that we have two gentlemen from the government at the program to tell us all the good things that's happening in that program. That we're just trying to say that we haven't forgotten the forgotten people of Sri Lanka.
For us tomorrow morning on Pathkara as well, 6 a.m. on Citizen TV.
Yes, I don't know what I've done to deserve that, but there you are.
Looking forward for that as well. For us, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Your expertise is quite welcome on the show as well as on our programs on News First. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I usually do. Power tends to corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Take care and good night.